Bang it. Punisher at the rim. There you go.
I've always liked basketball, but I always like watching it more than playing it.
His father was a bad mofo. You know, he's going to have to live up to that.
Shareef O'Neal, born January 11th, 2000. Want to see a player that had and still may have every opportunity to make it to the NBA, but probably doesn't deserve it?
Whoa. Come on, JC. That's a little bit too harsh, man. Come on now.
But am I right, though? Let me ask you a question, and then we'll agree to move on. Change his last name, and do we still care? I digress. Today's feature, as you know, is the son of the most dominant basketball player I've ever seen with my own eyes in my time consuming basketball. Shaquille O'Neal was a 7'1" monster of a basketball player that had everything you could ask for and more from a center. He was tall, big, had great footwork, post-game was bruising and intimidating. He was feared, had heart, and wasn't afraid to throw them things if need be. He was my kind of center, but my kind of player as well. The icing on top was and is that he was also one of the more charismatic personalities I think it's safe to say the world has ever seen. Mix that all together and you have multiple championships and finals MVPs and a Hall of Fame player that's held by many as one of the best centers to ever play the game. I tell you what, if I picked a 5 to go against one you picked and I selected Shaq, best believe your center is barbecue chicken all night. I say all that to lay out the type of genes you'd expect to be passed down to his offspring, or at least some remnants of that, but in this case, and in many cases, we learn that being a product of superstar lineage can be outweighed by other aspects, ones like what kind of development stage did you have, opposed to said superstar lineage. Shaq grew up in a very strict household with his stepfather, a former army sergeant, laying ground rules that were to be followed to a T. His biological father played basketball but fell victim to drug use and didn't meet Shaq until 2016. He carried a disdain for his biological father almost his entire life, and it helped give him a chip on his shoulder and aggression he played and dominated with on the court. He moved around a lot as a military kid, and it made him tough and also a people person that could handle most situations. A far cry from the upbringing Shareef O'Neal had after his father became one of the most successful athletes of all time. Fast forward to 2022 as news broke that Shareef O'Neal has entered the transfer portal and is again looking for a new school to play for his last year in college. This will make his third school in 4 years. At 6'10", 225 pounds, he's averaged close to 3 points each year, 3 rebounds, and shot 48% from the free throw line. Yet, some think he'll still play in the NBA one day, simply off name alone, and so be it. Just know, Daddy can't save you then. What stunted Shareef O'Neal's growth? Let's talk about it. It's your boy JC, Stunted Growth. Let's get it, man. Take a minute to like, subscribe, and comment on who I should do next. Shareef O'Neal, of all of Shaq's kids, was the most fortunate when it comes to being blessed with their father's height. He stands at 6'10" now and has always been one of the tallest in his group off and on the basketball floor. He was born in Los Angeles, California in 2000 when Dad was right in the middle of winning a first of 3 straight championships with the Lakers. He decided to take on the almost impossible task of playing basketball as Shaq's son, which is almost as much pressure as what it probably was to be the sons of the greatest to ever do it, and he was able to, and it just might take him all the way. But is he ready? Stunt number 1, upbringing matters. Yes, the way you were raised absolutely matters. We touched on it earlier with how different Shaq's upbringing and development stages was as opposed to what Shareef's must have been, with a father whose net worth is almost $1 billion, is probably the most famous athlete in the world, and for half the year isn't even around to provide any semblance of discipline. Raised predominantly by his mother, you could see where all the ingredients to be soft were present, and that's one of the reasons I think even though his opportunity has always been a step away from the NBA, he still might not make it. I still remember the day I saw he and Shaq working out as a young kid, and to his face, Shaq told him he was soft. I've always felt that about him just off the eye test alone, but to hear Shaq, who was cut from that old school cloth of what it meant to be a man, say it to him, maybe it was to get a reaction and make Shareef go harder at the drill, but to me that always stuck out. But can you blame him? He grew up with the proverbial silver spoon in his mouth, no matter if he wants to admit it or not, that was the case. Not that anything's wrong with that, because that's what we all as men work so hard to one day do. Make sure our kids have the things we may not have had. But while giving them those things, you take away their survival nature and smoothen the chip on their shoulder so much that they no longer have that fight at all. Worst case scenario, he lives off the O'Neal name forever and be welcomed into every door in LA he wants to. Growing up, basketball wasn't even Shareef's passion. He actually liked skateboarding and took it very serious. But because of everyone encouraging him, whether negatively or in a positive way, to step on the court, he reluctantly did, and that, I think, hurt him as well. If there's no passion and naturalness for what you do, there's only so far you could go. Especially if you begin to fail and no, worst case, you land on daddy's money and influence. As a freshman, he racked up offer after offer, as every program I think just wanted to be associated with Shaquille O'Neal. For his senior year, he transferred to Crossroads in Santa Monica and was ranked 52nd overall by 247 and the 10th best power forward in the country. He committed to UCLA in 2018, and me personally, I couldn't wait to see him finally tested and put to the fire. Sadly, that would have to wait. Stunt number 2, heart surgery. Having to have surgery at all is never a good sign, especially still so young. Before the season even had a chance to get going, he began to feel discomfort in his chest area and had to be monitored. Later, UCLA Medical would diagnose him with a heart condition, congenital heart defect, affecting the coronary artery. He was enrolled in August, and by December, it was announced he would have to have heart surgery, keeping him away for the entirety of what was supposed to be his freshman season. He took a medical red shirt, and some say he never really bounced back to the physical player he was prior to surgery. Although he was never really that physical, so imagine. In all honesty, some may argue the heart surgery may have saved him, because now at least he had an excuse for sitting out year one and could just rest on the surgery as an implemented excuse as to why he didn't make the league. He suited up for the 1920 shortened season and averaged 2 points at UCLA, and pretty much wasn't as advertised or expected, and decided to try his hands somewhere else. Dad's alma mater, LSU. Stunt number 3, just not good enough. Daddy's name can save you when you finally get to some official competition. The NBA has the best of that in the world. The reason I think Shareef would struggle is because he's just not that good a player. A combination of all things mentioned before, mainly not having to want or even need for anything as a youth, that took away the chip on his shoulder that could have led to success. Looking at his stats and his game, I'm trying to figure out what does he do or have that will translate to NBA play. He's never averaged at least 3 points a game in college, 1 year at UCLA, and his most recent 2 at LSU. At no stop did you see signs of someone that could contribute in any way on an NBA level, and I don't see that changing anytime soon. Like I said, if his name were something other than O'Neal, we wouldn't even be having this conversation. Because he is an O'Neal, it confused his fans that swear one day Shareef would make the NBA and was actually that good. All in all, Shareef O'Neal's story isn't over. Applause to him for coming back from heart surgery and still pushing to prove people wrong. He's excited about his next move. Hopefully, it's somewhere he could find who he is and what he can bring to an NBA team. But to me, not every NBA son is good enough to follow dad's footsteps. Salute, much respect, but for these reasons, his growth was stunted. It's your boy JC, Stunted Growth, and I'm out.